if y'all are ready, we'll go ahead and get started. I've got a couple of changes to suggest to the agenda. The first one is in front of your binder, you'll see a memorandum of agreement between the Gilmer County ELA and Homeland Security. We need to add that as, let's say item 1 under action items. Also, to remove item 4, because I found that that property is owned by the building authority, not by the Gilmer County. Appointments to 15 minutes. And remove item 8. Are there any other changes proposed to the agenda? Not, I make a motion the agenda be approved as modified.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, is moved to Kim. Update on Parks and Rec.
Morning. This weekend, youth football kicks off. We got team friends and fans and using both. We've got all our, so we're following the Georgia High School guidelines as far as what they're doing, taking care of players and stuff like that. So everybody's hoping we can just get through the season and not have an outbreak. So we're all looking forward to that, and all the kids are ready to play too. The storybook trail that we've been doing on the walker trail, they sent everything to the printers now, so they should be ready in the next couple of weeks and be getting those out. And that's still going to be a great addition to the walker trail. A couple weeks ago, the Mountain Tennis Association held the first tennis tournament that took place in Gilmer County, probably in 20 years, 25 years, I guess. It was a real success. I had a lot of positive things about the courts, and they did an excellent job. Mike come out last Thursday and sprayed all the fields at Creek Creek, so we was getting on there for bigger maintenance out there and getting them taken care of before wintertime hits. I don't know if everybody knows, we had a break-in out at Clear Creek Park, and we do have charges being called up on a few. They're all minors, so they can't any names, but that should all be taken care of by the end of the day as far as different matters involved. And I'd like to give a thank you to the fire department, because yesterday when Mike was there finding greens, he was about to have a blow up on number 3, so they stayed the squad truck up there just in case he wasn't able to put water on the greens. So that was a big plus right there to have that truck sitting there just in case. If he would have been able to get water on, he probably would have lost 2 or 3 greens. They wouldn't have sitting there. So that's a big thing for you guys. I appreciate it. That's all we got.
Any questions? Thank you, Kevin. Okay, Mike is not going to be here today, because he is aerating more of those greens. Brings us to update from Airport and Public Works. Smith.
Good morning, everybody. Let me start with the airport. The Airport Advisory Board has finished their work on the 5-year capital improvement plan. That will be presented to you in October. Madam Clerk, if you would kindly add that to the October agenda. And it will be somewhat different than what you have seen before, in that they have completely reworked the projects listed in the 5-year plan and moved some projects to the top of the list, and those projects are hangars. They are desperate need of hangars to be able to base aircraft. Aircraft is what makes that what they're. 3 of the runway safety project contractor should be there today, finishing the last item on the punch list, and that is regrassing some of the disturbed areas that the grass didn't take, and so they're hydroseeding in. Any questions on the airport? Moving to roads, the Old Bubtown Road Slide. If we don't have any more equipment breakdowns, we plan to start next Monday to finish that up. It has been so wet, and I've had all kinds of equipment break down. I've got 2 dump trucks down now, so we had to delay that. But we will start in earnest again next month. Also, during the month of September, we plan to start the LMIG paving for 2020. We have some 9 roads that will be paving. We're in the process now of hauling stone from Dalton, stockpiling at the road department, and then we'll move that stone out to the various projects that we have. That will start in earnest in September also. Mr. Chairman, I have a question for you on, is there any news on the flood control dam agreement?
No, there is
None. So what I'm hoping now is that this doesn't come about now, because I don't have the time to go.
Well, if the agreement comes about now, we just have to tell them that. You know, we'll sign a new agreement assuming it's one we can live with. But that doesn't mean we're going to jump right out there at this time of year and start doing it.
Lower Carnegie Bridge, have you heard anything on that?
The last I heard on that was that construction was supposed to start in 21.
In 21?
Yeah. That's, well,
At least that's a
that
date.
is what I've heard.
Okay. I think the other item that I had to discuss here, I think we'll have on the agenda elsewhere. That's all I have for roads. Any questions? I'd like to move to...
There is a question.
Yes.
Travis, if you would come to the podium.
Sure. I would express concern about a couple of issues on Rock Creek Road, and it was mentioned maybe that an exploration would be made as to what would be necessary to bring them up to speed and allow those load limits to be increased, and I just wanted to get an update on that. Travis Crouch.
Well, the only update there is on it is on the file that I sent you where it specifies what has to be done. And that's where we are with.
That file that you're referring to shows maintenance items, none of which, with my understanding, will raise the load limit significantly. And, so I have 6 packets that I've prepared on those 2 bridges, and I would like to distribute them to
Sure.
3 commissioners, and I have to do that.
Sure, that's fine.
But I don't know how to do that. There's a state.
Let me mention too that the first item on the list for those bridges should be to address the, I believe it was phrased as fatigue or whatever in those, not columns, but the
Beams.
beams.
The beams, my understanding, and I have not talked to a state engineer, he hasn't returned my call, but my understanding of that is maintenance that might, then you have to reapply to have them reevaluated.
Right.
And it might be a slight increase if anything, but we're still well under the limits of a propane truck, a gravel truck, a cement truck. How much should tanker truck weigh?
You're looking at the file $35,000.
Okay. So 17, 18 times.
Yeah, that'd be fair. Yes, sir.
So neither of those bridges were even going to support basic public safety. Even with those repairs that we're referring to, is my understanding. I have not talked to the director engineer, but my sources tell me that there might be a slight upgrade in road rating, but not significant. So
Do you, on those items there, do you have an indication of what it would take to increase that?
their recommendation is replacement.
Not happening soon.
It's always their recommendation.
I don't want to take a lot of
Can I get one more? Can I get one?
Yes.
Cindy, I mean, Glenn.
Can I just step across the hand?
But wait a minute. I don't know.
No.
I don't want to monopolize time, I'm trying to make this as brief as possible. If you would be willing to look at the last section of that package. The first two big packets are the actual DOT inspection reports. They're 14 pages long. I condensed them down as much as I could to just have the pertinent information. They include photographs of the beams in question that are severely rusted and material is missing and so forth. The last section that I gave you looks like this. The front page. The first page of that is the inspection report trend since 1991. Okay, so you've got the ratings on the condition of, the overall condition of the bridge, condition of the deck, superstructure, substructure, and then that last column is what's called a sufficiency rating. And you can see over time, the first bridge has gone from a 48 to an 18. The second one has gone from a 66 to a 22. The third one I put in here by comparison is Lower Carty Cape Bridge, which, as you know, was condemned. It went from a 68 to a 21 when it was condemned. So both of these bridges are right in the range where the state condemned Lower Carty Cape. The very last page that, for those of you who like visuals, is a graph of these three ratings over time for the Lower Carty Cape Bridge and then the two bridges on Rock Creek. And as you can see, sufficiency rating for the Rock Creek Bridge, one of them is actually lower than Lower Carty Cape was when it was condemned. The other one is right there with it. So, as I told you in the last meeting, there's well over 100 property owners out there that would be completely isolated if those bridges were to be closed. And right now, we cannot legally get gravel, propane, emergency vehicles. I talked to the school board, and fortunately, they are aware of this, and the state actually told them they could not operate school buses on Rock Creek Road. They had to discontinue that 2 years ago. So fortunately, school buses aren't involved. There are other bridges in the county in the same shape. 6 currently listed as structurally deficient, which is one step above pulling plug. So,
Let me ask you,
sir.
You noted at our last meeting accurately that the proposed solution, which was the T-plus for this, did fail, and you made the observation again accurately, the problem still there. And you're right, the problem is still there. What's gone away is the only solution we can come up with. So what I'm going to ask you is, I see the problems, and they're pointed out very succinctly. Do you have a proposed solution? that will actually solve this and not have a warning?
The maintenance items there will slow the decay of the bridge and extend and buy time. So that's the first obvious step. If it's not answered with the problems of the property owners out there, myself included, getting basic, even a lumber delivery truck exceeds that way.
But we're back to defining the problem. I'm asking
Defining the
for a
problem.
solution.
Well, I suggested it might not be the time to apply funds to a swimming pool. Advertise that. That was my suggestion.
I understand that, but I don't see that as a solution, because if we don't, they'll solve about that much.
Well, I don't know how much does a bridge cost.
Well, it's the Lower Carpet Bridge, according to the latest figures from BOC, it's going to be about $6.5 million.
That's a substantial span with a center support. These are, they span 36 feet.
Jim, you got any idea what it would cost to replace Rock Bridge?
I don't, but I can tell you, you start at $1 million and you go up. And the Rock Creek Bridge is a short span. It will not be as expensive as the Lower Carter Gate.
Right.
The Lower Carter Gate and Rock Creek is a continuous span. The new bridge at Lower Carter Gate will also be a continuous span. I mean, you start at $1 million and go up.
The other thing I wanted to point out, there were warnings about Lower Cardiac Bridge. Here's a document from an inspection that makes a statement that it's in, this substructure was in critical condition. Unless closely monitored, it may be necessary to close the bridge until corrective action is taken. So,
What's the date on
you know, when I made the photocopy, it was turned down and I did not get that. It was prior to the closing. My best guess is 2015 inspection. So this did not come without just a bolt out of the blue. There was warning. And if you look at the data I provided you, I think that warning has been provided by GDOT. The next step will be the same thing, I believe. I'm going to leave it to you. I don't envy your position. I've struggled with budgets sitting in that chair where Commissioner Ferguson is. I know the challenges, but I would restate that public safety of our citizens is a fundamental priority. It has to be.
So, one final question. If we decide we're not going to be able to prove we're going to take that $1 million, and we feel like there's another bridge somewhere else that's even more critical, and we replace that, and you're still in the same situation.
Got to start somewhere. And there are other bridges. In March of last year, one was derated to 5 tons, I saw. Another one was derated to 6 tons, which both are worse than Rock Creek. However, for some reason, their structural deficiency rating is higher. So I don't claim to fully understand all the mechanics of that. I've done a lot of research in a very short amount of time. Not all of the data has been readily available, and you're aware of that situation. I do look forward to getting that data from you.
As soon as I get access into there.
Yeah, I understand. It's just one of those situations I didn't know existed until I saw that derating on this bridge, and I use it. But the more I dig, the more concerned I am about our citizens. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions about roads? Solid waste, you have the monthly report that I provide to you there every month. One of the things that I want to point out to you, and this is kind of a preview for our budget hearings that are coming up. Pickens County has closed, they have discontinued acceptance of C&D waste. We are getting lots of C&D waste from Pickens County. Fannin County has increased their price per ton on C&D waste. It's double ours. The only other depository for C&D waste is, well, there's actually two. One is the transfer station that Advance operates on Progress Road. And I'll have for you in the budget hearings a comparison of the charges and things of that nature. But I'm telling you now, we cannot continue at the rates that we're charging for C&D waste. The household garbage is holding its own, but we are inundated with Pickens County C&D waste, Manning County C&D waste. We had just yesterday, Cherokee County bringing C&D waste to us, and the charges that our vendor charges us is accelerated every year. So I give you that as a preview. That's one of the reasons that I'm providing you with that monthly report, showing you the volume that we're dealing with, and I'll leave it at that. Whenever the budget hearings start, and of course I'll discuss with Chairman Ferguson, we cannot continue at the rates that we're charging without the taxpayer having to put more money into the solid waste department. The lift station, the engineer, I was authorized this month to authorize the engineer to proceed with design and bid documents and permits for the lift station replacement at the landfill, as well as the force main. The engineer estimates to get permits and everything probably 4 months. But we should have design and that for you to look at in, if not October, certainly November. But that work is proceeding. And you know the problems of the lift station and the amnesty tire program. Because of COVID-19, we had to reschedule that. That program will be from October 12th to the 24th. Of course, that is through a grant that we received from EPD of $25,000 to allow citizens to dispose of tires on commercial establishments for a 2-week period. And in addition to that, we received a $5,000 grant to allow the disposal of right-of-way, what we call right-of-way tires. That are tires that are picked up off county roads or off the state routes. Any questions about solid waste?
All right, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Lloyd, you want to give us an update on the swimming pool thing?
I'll start out by saying I wish I had a better report, but I didn't realize when I took this project that the limited supply of engineers that work on structural design for public swimming pools is very limited. I've already gone to 3 engineering firms in the southeast, and right now I'm working with Scott Wall with Premier Food, an engineering outfit out of California that is possibly available. The situation is, just to give you a little history of what I've gone through, is that when the covert hit, everybody started putting their swimming pools off. And so they got backed up with swimming pools. And so then as time went
might possibly could go is, I think we refer to it as contract at risk, is that we go up or just give a, sketch and go to the swimming pool builders and say, you know, when you take this as a contractor at risk situation, and not have to look at that. But other than that, I don't have any, you know, any, firm, commitment other than that.
So we approved an engineering firm earlier.
No, we have not approved an engineering firm. We just approved it.
We approved the money for one.
Yeah.
And actually, at that time, we did have one.
We did.
Yeah, so we did have one.
But that got out.
But then when we went back to them, then they were already busy. And so,
Well, I believe those are the ones that said that they had just received a new insurance policy.
oh yeah, that's also
And-
true on that.
And new policy didn't include liability coverage for engineering commercial pools.
Correct.
So they backed out, and we just haven't been able to find another percentage. So we did have one, and we're happy for them.
So we're, you know, again, I thought we had this all designed early in specs. That's what we were told, I was told.
Okay, no,
And obviously that was an error, so we're back to square one.
no. We have a design, but we don't have engineering
But I understand, but
you know, complete the design.
when I asked the question, with those specs, DOT to be bid, and I was told yes at the time. So I'm just saying, you just keep getting put off.
And I thought that we could at the time.
Right. So,
Well, actually, though, I think what you're saying is that we could, but we wouldn't have the little
That's correct.
engineering stamp.
I mean, yeah, these pool builders will give us a design as far as that goes, but we would not have, so to speak, a certified engineer stamp. And I wouldn't be afraid to approach that, aspect. Go that way. Because, you know, the contractors are taking responsibility for, some of the risk, whether it's, you know, whether you've got an engineer stamp or not.
David, is that feasible?
To do a contract at risk without any specifications, and your bid prices are going to come in really high because those contractors they're not going to have a real good understanding of the materials that are necessary to complete that project. And if they're at risk, I mean, I would suspect it would be a little bit higher.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, normally that's what the specs do, is it kind of allows them to accurately quote that and make their bids, so your bids will come in higher.
In terms of liability for the county, so, did they increase it?
When you say liability, are you talking liability as far as the budget, or are you talking liability as far as the design? ACCG would be ensuring that at the end of completion of the project, the contractor's going to construct it in accordance with and it's a conceptual design. That's where y'all are at. It's a
That's correct.
conceptual.
Yeah, we don't have any hard drawings, we don't have a concept,
That's a big leap to go from conceptual design to an awarding of a bid in that particular scenario when you're talking project of that size. I would really see if we could get some of those specs. I give it one last shot before I went to this contract risk without the specs. Honestly, that would be my suggestion as the attorney for the county. It can be done, but you may not also, the other thing is you may not get a lot of contractors, because as I understand, they're heavily covered over right now with the low interest rate environment, and even on the commercial side, and you may not get a lot of contractors that even want to submit a bid without having knowledge as to what they're bidding on. And Lloyd's been down that road before, in the private world. If somebody gives you a conceptual, you're going to add numbers to it, aren't you, Lloyd?
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. We'll give it one more try.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to citizens wishing to speak. Anybody that would like to make any comment on any topic? Thank you.
My name is Tom Harris. I'm president of Buckler Estates, Property Owners Association. In March of this year, the LMEG paving for 2018 was completed. One of our roads ending up being two of our roads, which belong to Cherokee and Shenandoah, were paved. Problem I've come up to, and I brought it up 30 days ago, is there is a separation taking place in the paving on Cherokee as it meets Shenandoah. It was improperly laid down. There is no adhesion between the new paving and the old paving. So we're getting cracked separation. I have pictures of it. Glad to show it. That's going to deteriorate over time. Right now, in Buckler Estates, there are at least 5 new building projects taking place, requiring concrete mixers, delivery vehicles, things like that. This is on the roadway that goes to your golf course, and it needs to be looked at. And I say that in all sincerity because I'm concerned about it, but it's so minor compared to all the other stuff that you have. And I want to make sure that the record is there.
Right.
For what we got, I deeply appreciate it.
I have seen the problems with that paving, and I agree with Tom. It was bad adhesion. The tack that went down was not sufficient. The road superintendent and I both have looked at it. He has a work order and a plan. What we plan to do at the same time that we are doing the 2020 LMIG paving is we will move up there, and it's primarily in the intersection of Shenandoah and Cherokee, and we'll make those repairs. So we are aware of the problem and have a plan to correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Just want to make a quick observation referring to the proceeding on the pool without an engineered stamp. It reminded me of the situation where the well was dug out at the golf course, and the decision was made not to get an engineered commercial well to save money. And in the long run, that turned out not to be such a good idea. It's food for thought.
I agree. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, if not, we have unfinished business, discussion, possible action on the airport security proposal. This is one that's kind of been around too much. And it's to address the problem that we have out there for the vandalism. We've had numerous situations where people come out there and based on the beer cans and so forth, they appear to be partying out there. And as part of their partying efforts, they like to go around and pick out the lights, the runway lights. And it has been a very costly endeavor for us. Those things are not cheap. So what this is a proposal from Icon International Solutions and Services, essentially to evaluate the problem and propose a solution that would prevent these folks from being able to get out there and do this. The cost of this particular contract is, I believe, yeah, $2,400. Ideally, at the end of that $2,400, we would have a plan of how we could strengthen and secure that area. Now that is the plan. That's not the strengthening and securing. I'm sure that would be a fair amount above that. So what we need to decide is, do we want to go down this particular route? Or do we want to try to, I guess, figure out for ourselves what we can do? I have no preference on that, other than the fact that we got to do something, because we can't keep paying $1,000 and $2,000 every time somebody decides to go out in the middle of the night and pick out a few lights. So, with that, I was just holding that for discussion.
I had a couple of questions about this. Jim, I know that you said the 5-year plan is coming up with the airport. I mean, might we have some discussion with them about this, because
No, that is I was just thinking that as the chairman was explaining the agreement. What we should do is add that to the 5-year plan. Now, there's no obligation, but with that, it would be possible for us to be reimbursed for that security study. And that was the Airport Advisory Board, I'm sure would recommend that. They have in the 5-year plan, which you haven't seen now, security fencing and things of that nature that are listed there. But I would strongly recommend to you that we add the security study to the 5-year CIP. And what that would do is not necessarily give you the money on the front end, but allow you to be reimbursed for that study. And then whatever recommendations they make, then add those to the 5-year plan as well.
And we would.
Does that make sense?
It does, except as I understand it, what it would do would be make us eligible to apply for a grant or a loan.
Right,
Not
it would be
necessarily
reimbursed. Yeah, you'd spend it on the front end, Charlie, but it would allow you to be reimbursed for that in a
we
future
get
grant.
for the-
Yeah, yes, sir.
Now, are we talking about adding this specific study to the plan, or just a study?
Well,
I
a study
generic
or
would be,
even the specific study. I would make it generic on the 5-year plan, and then who you choose to do the study is really up to you.
we definitely need to get it in the plan.
Okay.
When I looked at the proposal, I thought, gosh, this is a $100,000 plan, I thought that's a great assessment. I realized it's pretty an academic, off-the-shelf background, I guess. I was surprised at $2,400. I'm not sure what we're going to get, because we don't know, but I have no problem sure we will do it.
Yeah, I do that like that.
So I couldn't really tell what we were going to get, but anyway. I'll
And
do it.
honestly, I'm not sure of myself, but I think maybe the way to go would be to enter a generic study to the after a 5-year plan. I don't know. I want a little more detail on just exactly the role of right, this is very generic. I don't have really a problem with the cost, because like you, I was thinking but there's not really anything in there that says what we can do. So, I guess my recommendation on it would be to table it. For even to get people like, do another proposal, that would be more.
I'm fine with that, realizing we're gonna have more incidents probably. But
Jim, did you say that we would hear about the 5-year plan from the Airport Advisory Board next month? Is that what-
Yes.
is one- So maybe we could table it to have it discussed when we hear from someone from there.
Well, and I have it, but we didn't have it in time for it to be included on this agenda, so it will certainly be provided to you, and you'll have plenty of time to look at it before the October meeting. We have a deadline. That 5-year plan has to be updated every year. It has to be submitted to Georgia DOT, aviation programs, and the FAA by November the 30th or something like that. And what that does, Karleen, is that keeps us eligible for grants in the future. And it shows, too, that we're looking forward. We're not, that there is a plan for capital improvements at the airport if money should become available. It is no commitment on the county's part or anything. It's simply a planning document.
Tim, can you go ahead and add this to it before you send it to us?
Yes, we will, and that needs to be on the agenda for October. And we'll get it to you in plenty of time for you to look at it. I have it in draft form now, but I didn't have it in time to get it to you this week.
And if we table this until the October meeting, what I can do is ask Pat if he would communicate
That'd be great too.
and give us a full description about what we can do.
One of the things I would just want to add, we're not unique in security problems at airports, general aviation airports. Just in the last couple of months, Cherokee County had the same problem. And it Dalton a couple of years ago. So it's just a problem that the general aviation airports have that are not manned 24 hours a day.
The only thing about that is I don't care about Cherokee.
I understand that.
Thank you. You all good with taking this? Sure.
Yes.
All right, that brings us to the memorandum of agreement. Okay, without going through a whole lot of back and forth, if y'all have looked through this, are you okay with it?
I'm good.
I'm good. Then I would make a motion that we approve. Laura will make a motion.
I'm going to approve it, but take over the gym.
We just approved it by proxy. Okay, moving on. Resolution to adopt the updated community work program and capital improvement plan for Gilmer County and the cities of LJ and East LJ. I've looked through this, it's something that we have to do, and it looks like all the requirements so far have been met, other than us just approving the submittal. Personally, I'm good with it.
Sure.
Yes, same.
All right, and then bring us to discussion possible action of acquisition of voting drop box. This is something I talked to Tammy Watkins about. This is more of the effort of making it easier for people to vote. The state has provided a $3,000 grant to Gilmer County's election vote. And that would be utilized to purchase this ballot drop box. Now, the cost of the ballot drop box would be $2,130. $1,597.50 of that would be covered under the grant. $532.50 would be the matching portion of it. Given the situation and the basically non-optional part of that, I think it. All right. Discussion and possible action on disposition of Bridgewater Resort property. And I do have some information. I'm just giving. What you've got here is just our tax records, straight off the tax records. With a picture of the property on the map there. This is an indication that we have a lot 4 or 5 big cars on Armour Way. I'm not sure how we wound up with a line this way. I've been told that we got it for the taxes. I don't know how we would even get it that way, given the fact that we have essentially no personal use for it. But it is costing us an assessment every year, which I think is around $600 or so. When I first took office, the assessments had not been paid, and we were up to almost $4,000. And that included a lot of taxes and penalties and interest and so forth. I was able to strike a deal with them that if we would go ahead and pay the actual assessments that were behind, they would waive the interest and penalties. So we got out for about $1,800, and we've been paying the assessments ever since. It's not a lot of money, based on a $20-some million budget. It's just, in my opinion, wasted, because there's nothing that we can ever do with a residential lot in South Carolina. Let's dispose of it. I like the way you think. According to the tax assessors, they've assessed it at $4,800. David, does that mean we actually have to hold out $4,800 to this fund?
No. You can put a minimum bid as low as $500 or $1,000. Do remember, you'll have advertising costs associated with it, so you probably don't want to put the minimum bid too high, where you end up having to come back and re-advertise.
Actually, I'd like to put it pretty low, because you can get good lots in this way. I know a lot of.
Yeah, I was thinking 500.
I don't know. All right, so tomorrow night,
Yes.
I would make a motion that we advertise for these properties. Y'all ready to an auction or whatever it is? I'm not sure we're going to do it.
No. I wonder why the association didn't foreclose on the property.
Well, I think
More
if
detail, yeah.
if the taxes aren't paid, but the assessments are, then they couldn't foreclose.
But at the time, before you settled with it.
Oh, it wouldn't, it was already our property at that point. What I
Why would
said,
they foreclose on it?
oh, from us,
Yeah.
well, I guess that might have been, something that they would be considering a little later. The part that I left out on them was that they turned us over to a collection agency. And, I had actually been trying, to be in the weeds with it, but I've been trying to contact the interim general manager to discuss this, and have been having no luck, nobody want to talk to me about it. And when I got the notice from the collection agency, I kind of went deep with it.
Oh, let's just, $500 or whatever.
All right, discussion, possible action on the committee for river regulation and enforcement. Everybody seems to be pretty much unanimous at our last meeting that we needed to have a committee to look at the river. Now, I'm not real enthusiastic about the committee primarily because we had one in 2015. And they couldn't come to any kind of agreement amongst themselves. But I do believe that it's something that we need to try because this is how we give people their voice. So the question is, two things. First of all, how will the committee be formed? How many people, from what segments, and so forth. The other thing too, though, and this one is what's critical to me, is once that committee is formed, I believe we should have a date certain when they have to have their report to us, or it just won't be considered. Because last time we kept meeting after meeting after meeting, not ready, not ready, not ready, and finally, I never did really get it. So I'm good with having a committee as long as we set a timeline for them and a deadline for when they have to submit whatever it is they're going to.
It has to be very, very structured for it to produce something.
Yes.
And it would come from the committee as a recommendation.
Sure.
So it's still be up to us.
Perhaps even more than one recommendation, alternates. And it would still be up to us to decide how we're all going. We'd have the option of just disregarding the whole thing. Now, for that reason, because we're going to ultimately make our own decision, and all they're going to do is make recommendations, it would be my belief that no commissioner should be on that committee. Because we would be influencing recommendations based on what we then might later on decide we want to do for ourselves.
I hear what you're saying. If you can have some structure without being on there, fine. We don't want to become a complaining session. Something needs to be done, obviously. So I'm certainly willing to do it this way and have to have a deadline. Yes.
My vision for it would be that the people are selected, the deadline is provided to them, perhaps with a quick fact sheet of what we'd like for them to ultimately provide to us in what format. At that point, we would just be out of it until such time as they present their formal recommendations. So when they have their meetings, if they all just complain and carry on, that would be on them.
So you're probably thinking in terms of representatives from one or both subdivisions,
Yes.
public safety, the commercial outfitter community. That's kind of the structure number.
I'm a little iffy on the outfitter because I'm afraid that they got their own agenda.
What do you think about that?
Well, of course, I'm flexible on those things. What I don't want is, you've seen when we have discussions on the river, sometimes they get sort of dominated.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want that in the
I certainly belong to the committee and I'm flexible on the membership. I think hard about the outfitters.
I'm flexible on that.
And
I'm not hard.
They're not necessary.
My concern with outfitters is if somebody brings up, maybe we should ban two. At least one of them, because I'm not gonna do it.
But we do license them. So the license is where you say the real coolers.
Oh, yeah, we have the option, we can still do that.
So, I mean-
I'm just afraid that they'd get hung up in committee meetings.
I don't have any problem excluding them, but I think, I don't know.
Well, and I don't have any problem including them, it was just something that we needed to discuss. I'm fine with these from, what I would recommend if we need to do that would be that,
Karleen, what's your reaction?
I think that the committee is a great idea. Doug Colburn had actually stepped up, and I'm not sure if he contacted you, but he's told me that he would be glad to head that up. He thinks including public safety with the sheriff's department, another person from your neighborhood, Charlie, and he did mention the outfitters, but he thought that we'll take what we already have, see what's worked and hasn't worked, and go from there. He doesn't feel like it will take that much effort because we know what works. We see that having a deputy down there worked last weekend perfectly. There wasn't one, unfortunately, Sunday and Monday, so I think there's a little bit of some trouble down there for Labor Day weekend. But I think they can take what the Board of Commissioners did before and just kind of refine it, and it wouldn't be that long of a thing. He did not want to have a lot of people on that committee, and I'm speaking about that.
Yeah.
But he did want to be able to reach out to talk to the outfitters. And
Okay, maybe that's not, but the committee work, yeah, not being mentioned. Okay. Colburn seemed like a very reasonable, responsible individual. If you could do it.
I had a conversation with him, and I shared with him my concerns about the community because the last time it just seemed to be what you had feared that everybody just fell for it. But Doug shared with me that his master's degree is in conflict resolution, and so he felt that his background would allow him to kind of steer the ship through those waters, so to speak.
Should we have it at every meeting? Sorry.
In any event, I think he would be a perfect chair.
I also would suggest that we include someone from Keep Gilmer Beautiful if they want to participate.
I would agree with you.
Because I know they felt pretty strongly about what was going on in their part of the county and that.
Well, why don't we do this then? By tomorrow night, let's just each have a quick list of what groups we shall be representing on the committee. And then we hopefully can get together quickly and make a decision on how many people, what groups are here.
I think we'll do that about a year before I'm concerned.
Doug preferred it small, not too expansive.
Well,
I mean, like everybody we've named so far is.
no more than 2 months.
Agree.
So we still got a lot we got to do that.
Yes. Very good.
Okay.
Do you want to reach out to Doug to see if he wants to open that up?
I'll be happy.
Before tomorrow night, I mean,
Be happy.
that way we can say he's agreed and.
Yeah.
report that. Thank you.
Okay. Discussion and possible action on budget amendments to incorporate the CARES Act funding into the 2020 budget. This will be the funding. Did y'all get the copy of that? Yes. Well, the one thing that I want to kind of clarify on it, because we put it into the category of miscellaneous supplies, and that was because there's so many different items on there that it would have been very difficult to break it out all out into line each. But the miscellaneous supplies consist primarily, in terms of money we spend, of temperature stations where you just walk up and touch your head to the thing and pops out temperature, and also hand washing stations, and sanitizing stations, where people coming in can walk up to that and wash your sanitizer hands very quickly. Sprayers. This is the hand sprayers, so that if you have a meeting, like here for instance, somebody can come in afterwards and just fog your into the sprayer and do go to the next meeting. There's a miscellaneous things like masks and so forth in there, but primarily those are the two big items. So I just want to clarify that it's not just miscellaneous supplies. There's some rather large items in there, but there's big enough a variety that didn't want to put a line for each individual item. Be happy to provide that to you. Any other questions or comments?
First, I'm glad that the funds were available. So anything I say, I don't mean to take anything away from that. A concern I have, which is, you always have this anytime you buy equipment, there's going to be a lot of maintenance down the road. We've got to be aware of that. And how many police cars are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about four with this money, the request for the sheriff for 2 more than 1.
This is the four.
I'm sorry, I should, this is the whole,
Okay, well,
including all of the lights and all that stuff.
didn't we just approve these purchases for vehicles this year?
We had approved in the 20 budget for the sheriff.
Right.
But what we've had to do, what we've done traditionally in the past is we approve so many every year to try to keep the rotation going.
That's where I'm headed.
So that, yeah, when I first got here, they were using like 15, 20 vehicles.
But if you did 4 more this year and this one already done, does that leave us next year?
Yeah, because they were going to be looking for 6 at least. Usually they look for 9.
So they're going to help us out next year.
They're going to help us out. I had a conversation with Stacy about it. What I asked him was, if we can give you 4 in this, will you be okay then with only 2 in budgeted next year? And he was good with that.
Good.
And in fact, a lot of this actually is intended to take away from the
Exactly. I know there's, looks like 200,000 unspent, unidentified,
Yeah.
evidence room for the sheriff, evidence room for the sheriff.
I think we do need that, but I was hoping that was in there. But I don't think it's down this way in there. We are going to be talking about that too. That's going to be at the top end about $70,000.
Right.
And I have here.
Right, that's fine. what I'm not.
We need to add that in here. One of those deals where I thought about it and was planning to ask again and everything else happened.
Sure. Have there been, I hope the answer to this is no, there have been significant personnel costs because of the pandemic that we're going to have to cover somehow? If so, okay, good.
The good thing about that is that the personnel costs, and there's been personnel costs.
Sure.
We pay for people to sit home and quarantine, and that federal act that requires us to do that. But it was money that was already budgeted for their salary. So what's happened is we pay people without necessarily getting value for it, but we haven't had to pony up additional money because it was already budgeted.
We shorted the road department on gravel. We want to add that in.
We were going to have to come for a budget amendment for that anyway. I just didn't know if y'all wanted to do any of this, but I'd love it.
I'm fine to add it.
You don't have any tens of thousands, but about one.
25,000 at the minimum, and, but since you're talking about gravel, I'd like to add some other items. One of the things that we have.
We're not talking about other items.
No, you gave me my chance. You're right. Gave me my chance. The other item in the M&O budget that we will seriously go over is maintenance of equipment and vehicles.
I want to interject something about that because you were making the point about this equipment if we maintenance something up. Actually, it should be less because with the old equipment we have, it's killing us.
I was thinking primarily.
I don't think he was thinking about the road department equipment.
No, I'm saying primarily of some of this ambulance, some
I
of
got you.
these things, tractor, that's what I was thinking.
In that case, never mind. Yeah.
There are three items in the road department budget that I would like to see a budget amendment or funding, and that is stone purchases, maintenance of equipment and vehicles, and possibly pipe and culverts. In solid waste, remember, it's not just road department, solid waste, again, maintenance of equipment and facilities. We have had 2 pumps at the lift station to go down. One of them cost $4,500 to be rebuilt. The other that is being rebuilt now is $9,000. And those things, if we can handle those with CARES Act, it will lighten the load, so to speak, on the M&O.
So 15,000 would a little more than cover what you're talking about.
15,000 in solid waste?
For the pumps.
Yes, yes.
40,
40 is that what?
25 for the gravel, you said.
Oh, wait a minute, we're talking about different departments now. Solid waste,
We're trying to put those in the add. The solid waste, the only thing we'd have to be for the pumps, right?
yeah, it would be an increase in the line item of facilities maintenance.
That's 13,500?
15,000,
15.
because we're not through the year yet. And then the road department, stone purchases, maintenance of vehicles and equipment, and pipe and coal.
All right. So you said minimum 25,000 for stone purchase.
Yeah.
What, is that a reasonable figure when you say minimal? Is that what you're
I
saying?
think it's reasonable, Charlie. I think it is.
What do you think?
That's what you cut. That's what was cut out of
Yeah.
the budget from the original proposal.
And one of the things that I throw in here is that we came up with a means of spreading the gravel a lot thinner to get more out of it, and it just didn't work out. We got to put some gravel in and do that grading, and we're just wasting the time. I didn't seem to go back and put the regular amount of gravel out. Okay, so, maintenance, what do you think?
Maintenance of vehicles and equipment, Johnny, I don't have a big number for you on that right now, but I can get it. It's gonna be, $15,000-$20,000.
Roberts?
I haven't got it right now. We just put together an order. I can have that for you. I think it's like 12,000.
Can you have it torn out for us?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll start with these figures, but if you can true up some. for us.
Yeah.
I'll tweak them.
Jim, just a curiosity, you talk about hauling gravel from Dalton. Why not the quarry if you're just curious?
Well, no, that's a good question. If we're putting gravel on a gravel road, we can use the quarry here. If we're using gravel for paving purposes, it has to be washed. They do not have the capability here. So all of our paving stone has to be hauled from the Dalton quarry. It's clean, washed, and free of dust, and things like that. That's the reason.
Yeah.
Well, what I was proposing is, I'll go out there from discussion. Once we incorporate this, into the 21,000. We are going to be working, we're going to have to finish that lift station project in 21. We've got a grant for that, running $265 roughly of that. It's going to be about $800,000. We may want to consider whatever is left over in this line, and we get rid of those things, just dumping that into the lift station. Otherwise, we just have to do it. Sandy, did you want to say something?
No, I was trying to hear what you were saying.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we can talk later.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, is there anything else that we need to discuss on this? We're good. All right. Discussion and possible action on advertising for consultant services agreement for engineering work. I called the other day that, started out discussing the fact that BOC had called and requested information on some items they were going forward with. You know, we had these situations where we had to validate some actions taken on that contract out at the airport because at the time it had not been signed off on. We're hopeful that they've accepted that because they haven't accepted that, but they're moving on to some other items that they originally said they wouldn't do until they're satisfied. One of them is we are supposed to select we're supposed to select a consultant services agreement. I have a consultant services agreement. This one apparently may not be 2016. So what they're saying is you're going to have to advertise and select another provider, or not say another provider, it could be the same provider, but you're going to have a new consultant services agreement when it's done. So what this would do, this lists the steps that we would have to do. And I think the immediate thing that we would have to do, Mark, I would be to approve the advertising and the request for qualifications, statement qualifications. And then we can move forward from there. So we are going to have to obtain a new current consultant services agreement for engineering work out there. All right, then, moving on. Discussion and consideration of moratorium on green space subdivisions, Class D and Class E roads from the land development ordinance. Karen, if you would explain to us why we need a moratorium, please.
We've had a couple of different subdivisions that have been approved, and they're currently zoned R2, which is residential high density, minimum acreage is 1 acre per lot. Now, the agreement they've done is they have set it up in 3 acre tracts, and this is, there's 2 or 3 different subdivisions. They've set it up in 3+ acre tracts. They've got Class D roads and Class E roads within those. And Class E road, you can have a maximum of 10 lots, minimum 5 acres per lot on that road. My fear is going down the road, you know, these lots sell, the developer's no longer involved, and then the person comes in to divide those lots, and it gets done, and it gets through, and nobody notices the fact that it's on Class E road and not supposed to be split. Mistakes will happen. Whereas, if you had an R2 zone and you had a Class C road, which is less than 3 acres, you wouldn't have an option for split, because you would split the lots, they would be set up already in 1+ acre tracts. The moratorium would allow the developers to determine whether they want to size the lots according to the zone of the property, or if they want to rezone the property to meet the 3 acre plus minimum acre in an A1 zone, and then have a Class D road. Class E road, I wouldn't be opposed to not having those, because it's 14 feet wide, which is 1 car, and you can only have 10 lots that has to be monitored. 5 acre plus on each lot, again, has to be monitored. With the Class D road, you don't have a maximum number of lots. You can have as many as you want, as long as they're 3 acres or more in zone ag. Right now, zoning is not mandatory. If you want to have 3 acre lots in an R2 or an R1, you can't. But the road situation gets a little bit jumbled, because if you take those 3 acre lots and somewhere down the line, the covenants get changed and you can split lots, and they split them. Now they're below 3 acres and they should have a paper road.
Right.
And there's the monitoring would just be.
And so whatever is decided on this is going to involve an ordinance change.
Yes, we've been working on some different language in that, and the suggestion is that if the road size and the lot size was depicted by the zoning, it would be easier to keep up with and to monitor. You know that you have a R1 zone piece of property, and we've got a lot of big tracts that are R1 zone, 1.5 acres per lot at least. Class C road, which is a paved road. And then if you've got an agricultural zone parcel, then your minimum lot size is already 3. And if you have a Class D road in that's allowed in 3 acres or more lot size. I don't think the moratorium should not allow an A1 zone to have Class D road. I think they should still be able to do a Class D road because it's allowed for 3 acres or more.
What do you think would be a timeline for making the decision? It's not changing the ordinance, but just deciding which way we want to go. I think maybe 2 or 3 months.
Well, and another thing that we were talking about is not only just in subdivisions, but dividing property where it meets county maintained road. Because right now, the ordinance allows you to, if you've got, I'll give you an example on a big county road off of Fort Town, and it's 10 feet wide, maybe, and it's less than a 1/4 mile long probably. And there's a 30-acre tract of property on that road. The front's probably 1,500 feet of that tract fronts on that little road. This person asked me if they could divide it into 10 lots. And right now, yes, they can, as long as they can make the minimum frontage. If they do that, that little road will then have a lot more traffic on it. And every lot has a house on it. And 2 or 3 cars for that home. So the problem we run into, as well as the subdivision roads, is the roads fronting on county maintained inferior roads. And they would not have to bring those roads up to spec just to split the property. But if the ordinance required it, then that might help the county get the roads back in better shape.
But to determine exactly how, if we would, what we would have to do to handle that, how much time do you think we would need?
I would say a couple of months,
Okay.
maybe max.
So we know we need three months to make the cemetery. You're saying a couple of months to decide what needs to be.
Well, if we could have it effective January 1, would be ideal. And,
I don't believe that's going to happen. I really, not on an ordinance change. At the planning commission meeting last month, the announcement was made and shared with with the board and with those that were in attendance, which included a surveyor that works for a firm in town that does predominantly probably 85 to 90% of the subdivision ordinance or developments. And I sent out an email, shared an email with that firm, and I believe that they were comfortable if y'all adopted a moratorium, if you delayed the adoption of the moratorium until like November the 1st, so that anything that was in the process of being worked on at this point in time could be completed during that period of time. And I've gotten feedback from Karen on some changes that she'd like to see. I haven't gotten, maybe Jim's have been incorporated into Karen's, okay. There are other changes that will need to necessarily be considered, and I think that the planning commission definitely wants to be a participant in this ordinance change. So I think if you were to adopt a moratorium tomorrow, I would make it effective November the 1st is what I would suggest and encourage. That would give the parties that would be affected by this probably about 6 to 7 weeks to get everything completed. And then you may be able to get this thing together for advertising somewhere either in the 1st of December. And if that's the case, the best case I think would be adoption that February meeting, okay?
So there would be a 4-month moratorium.
Moratorium goes to November, December, January, yes. That was.
I want to make sure I know what we're talking about. We're talking about a moratorium on new subdivisions.
just the roads, Class D and Class E roads, and the type of zoning that they're placed in, basically.
Now,
You're
here in the
not a
moratorium,
complete moratorium, no.
but here in the moratorium, they could, if they wanted to do a subdivision, then normally they would end up with Class E roads.
That would be the
They
name.
could still do the subdivision, they just couldn't do Class E roads.
Unless
Here
they
in the moratorium.
rezoned it, that would be
Right.
correct. My feeling is if it's already zoned agricultural, or if they rezoned it to agricultural, Class D roads allowed in that zone.
Charlie said Class E, I think.
E,
E.
that would be, I'm not sure how we would.
Yeah,
Because right now it
moratorium.
is allowed in 5 acres or more.
But the moratorium would disallow it for 4 months, so,
You could, yes.
I mean, I thought that was before the moratorium.
Well, I think so, yes.
So, but what I'm asking though is during that 4 months, we're not really shutting anybody down if they want to create a subdivision. What we're saying is you can create it still, you just can't use Class D roads, you're going to have to upgrade the roads and if you want to do it right now.
Correct.
I just want to make sure they had an option and not just,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was my feeling. I didn't want to, suggest that the Class D road not even be an option because there's no maximum number of lots with Class D as long as you're 3 acres and above on each lot. And if it's zoned agriculture, you can't split a 4-acre tract because the minimum is 30 acres. So it would stop any fear or worry that down the road the lots would be split and the road would be inferior to what we require.
The one option that the moratorium would shut down though would be the option of subdivisions that would be exclusively accessed and utilizing county road at this point in time. That would be the one option. Now, you can tweak it a little bit to provide for the standard of the road, if you wanted to evaluate that.
We still have the two splits for calendar year rule.
That's correct, but 2 splits, that's it. But for instance, hypothetically, if somebody's got a 50-acre tract alongside an inferior county road, which I know Jim will be unhappy with it being subdivided, that it would shut that process down. But again, it wouldn't begin until November the 1st. We at the last planning commission, we did try to provide notice so that the community would spread in the community. And I do know, like I said, that the surveying firm that does the predominant amount of subdivision development are aware of it. They're trying to clean out and get everything front and center so that it can all be improved and move forward.
Well, if it turned out that we did it and there were unintended consequences, we can always modify it next meeting.
You can always look at it.
Well, we wouldn't have to flip it, we could edit it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So we'll do something in writing tomorrow night, is what we're going to act on, not just approval.
I think if we're gonna make that motion, somebody can make that motion
Right.
written out, then it's appropriate.
I give to you that 5 minutes for you.
I need to help you with that.
I'm
If I
liable
get
for
Jim's help, it's going to be half the time of the meeting.
I'm liable for that we're not letting you build anything anywhere.
Jim DuPont's here, he probably might wish to speak to this.
I thought he might have a meeting.
No, I don't, I just caught the tail end. So what if I understood the tail end of it, moratorium will not affect anything, as far as agriculture, Class E road. Only thing this is affecting would be 5 acres, 10 lots, Class E road.
Class E and anything off of county road, if something runs on county road, you just want to not build private roads, but simply cut up and access off of the county road.
And I did have one question with that, is I don't understand why it would affect all county roads.
It's the inferior county.
Well, and that's
But
that,
have those been itemized, the inferior roads?
and that was this, what I was telling you is you may wish to incorporate a standard, but somebody will have to evaluate whether or not it's an inferior road. And I think Jim.
That's pretty simple to do.
Okay.
If you just follow the E and D roads in your subdivision regulations, those would be inferior county roads. If they met that, if they were that spec or less, then they would be inferior county roads.
Now, Class E is 14-foot wide road, so
Right, and-
you're thinking is anything below that?
No,
Or that or below?
you include that.
Because the Class D is 18 feet
I
wide.
think what Jim's saying is if it doesn't have a 60-foot right of way, then it's going to be considered.
And it
inferior
doesn't have
county
an
road.
18-foot surface width, it's an inferior road.
Okay, 18-foot surface and a 60-foot right of way. Then that's easy to identify.
I was just concerned about being county-wide. Significant.
Given that it's the inferior road, so does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, because I was just thought if we could itemize or what Jim alluded to.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on this one? I did, it was about 5 minutes for the meeting tomorrow night. I do have a request for very short executive session. With no action. And I'll make that formal motion.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you, folks. Appreciate it.
Bye, Jimbo. I gotta go get my checks.
Sometime.
Well, today I may.
What do you mean?
Sometime today?
Sometime today.
Tomorrow. Nope. Tomorrow.
What do you mean, a run for?
I just like to go down there, everyone, some kind of roads you saw anywhere.
You've got the chart. You've got the chart, tell me.